Hi, awesome classmates. My name is Grace. My presentation is about RA 7279, or the Urban Development and Housing Act of 1992. Here are some of the things that we are going to cover in my presentation. The overview of RA 7279, the objectives, the beneficiary and criteria for a beneficiary, and the salient provision of this act. We will cover everything in 15 minutes.
Created using Powtoon.
The Urban Development and Housing Act of 1992, or RA 7279, also known as Lena Law, after its proponent, former Senator Joey Lina. This law became effective on March 29, 1992. This act is a social legislation implementing the state policy stated in Section 9 and 10 of the Article 13 of the 1987 Constitution on taking care of the underprivileged and homeless citizen in our country. It aims to provide for a comprehensive and continuing urban development and housing program and establish the mechanism of its implementation. What are the objectives of this Lena law? So first is to make available to the underprivileged and homeless citizen decent housing at affordable cost, provide a rational use and development of urban land, regulate and direct urban growth and expansion towards the dispersed urban and more balanced urban-rural interdependence, provide an equitable land tenure system that shall guarantee security of tenure to program beneficiaries but shall respect the right of small property owners and ensure the payment of just compensation, encourage more effective people's participation in the urban development process, and improve the capability of the local government unit in undertaking urban development and housing program and projects. So who are the beneficiary and what are the criteria to be one? So Section 3 of the RA 7279 state that the beneficiary are those underprivileged and homeless citizens. It refers to individuals or families residing in an urban and urbanizable area whose income or the combined household income falls within the poverty threshold as defined by NEDA, and who do not own housing facilities. So these include those who live in makeshift dwelling units and do not enjoy the security of tenure. While Section 16 of this Act provides the qualification of a beneficiary. So first, must be a Filipino citizen, must be underprivileged and homeless as defined in Section 3 of this Act, must not own a real property whether in urban or in rural area, and must not be a professional squatter or a member of squatting syndicate. So it is worth to note that professional squatters and members of squatting syndicate are being punished by this law.
Created using Powtoon.
Section 3 of Republic Act 7279 defined professional squatters as individual or groups who occupy lands without the express consent of the landowners and who have sufficiently income for legitimate housing. So this refers to individual or person who have previously been awarded homelets or housing unit to the government but who sold, leased, or transferred the same to settle illegally in the same place or in another urban area. This refers also to non-bona fide occupants or intruders of lands reserved for socialized housing. This term shall not apply to individuals or groups who simply rent lands or housing from professional squatters or squatting syndicate. In the same section, squatting syndicate was also defined as a group of persons engaged in business of squatter housing for profit and gain. So these individuals are being penalized in Section 45 with imprisonment and fine. So another term that was defined in Section 3 is the socialized housing. So this socialized housing refers to housing program and projects covering house and lot or home lots only undertaken by the government or the private sector for underprivileged and homeless citizens, which shall include sites and services development, long-term financing, liberalized term and interest of payment, and such other benefit in accordance with the provision of this act. So the coverage of this act is the all urban and urbanizable areas, including the existing area for priority development, zonal improvement sites, slum improvement and resettlement sites, in other areas that may be identified by the local government unit as suitable for socialized housing. Section 5 of this article provides for the exemption. So some of the exemption that is not covered by this act is the coverage of comprehensive agrarian reform law and those used for national defense and security states and other items that has been mentioned in section 5.
Created using Powtoon.
Salient provisions of Republic Act 7279. So National Urban Development and Housing Framework. So this is a comprehensive plan for urban and urbanizable area to serve as basis for achieving the objective of the law. So this is formulated by the Housing and Land Use Regulatory Board under the direction of the Housing and Urban Development Coordination Council in coordination with the local government units and other concerned public and private sector. The next one is the UDHA Socialized Housing Program. So the housing program of the law provides for beneficiary listing. So this beneficiary listing is coming up with a master list of beneficiary within 1 year from the effectivity of the law. Second is the land inventory. So the law mandates that the LGU to do land inventory within its territorial jurisdiction. Then the identification of the socialized housing site, the acquisition of the identified socialized housing site, and the disposition of lands for socialized housing. The next one is the UDHA resettlement program. So, resettlement of person living in danger areas is given emphasis in this law. So, first is those on esteros, rail work, road tracks, garbage dump, river banks, shorelines, and waterways, and public places like sidewalks, road, parks, and grounds. So, the LGU, in coordination with the National Housing Authority, are tasked to provide relocation or resettlement site with the basic services and facilities and access to employment opportunities sufficient to meet the basic need of the affected families. The law requires that this program be undertaken within 2 years from the dates of its effectivity, so March 29, 1992 to March 29, 1994.
Created using Powtoon.
Another salient provision of Republic Act 7279 is the Balanced Housing Program. Developers of the proposed subdivision projects are required to develop an area for socialized housing equivalent at least 20% of the total subdivision area or the total subdivision cost, with the option to comply instead of any of the following: development of new settlement, slum upgrading, joint venture projects with LGUs or any housing agency, or participation in the community mortgage program. Rules and procedure on eviction and demolition is one of the salient provisions of this act. The law discourages demolition as practice. Eviction or demolition may be allowed only when persons, entities occupy danger areas, person or entity occupy public places, place occupied is a government infrastructure project site, there is a court order for eviction or demolition. Construction falls under the category of new illegal infrastructure. Structure belongs to the professional squatter or member of the squatting syndicate. In the execution of eviction or demolition involving underprivileged or homeless citizen, the following are mandatory. This is based on Section 28 of UDHA Rules and Regulation. There should be a 30-day notice. Adequate consultation between the LGU and the underprivileged and homeless citizen must be done. Eviction and demolition must be done only during office hours and good weather. The presence of the LGU officials. All those participating in demolition must have proper ID. The Philippine National Police shall be in proper uniform. So the presence of the PNP is not to demolish but for law enforcement and for disturbance control only. Heavy equipment shall not be used except for concrete structures.
Created using Powtoon.
Last on the salient provision of the Republic Act 7279 is the moratorium on eviction and demolition. So there shall be a moratorium on the eviction of all program beneficiaries and on the demolition of their houses or dwelling units for the period of 3 years from the effectivity of the law, while the program components like the housing program, resettlement program, balanced housing program are being accomplished or otherwise set in place. Again, the said housing program is available for underprivileged and homeless citizens in an urban or urbanizable area. That the said housing program comes with the basic services like portable water, electricity, road access, and other services as provided in Section 21 of this Act. That the consent of the beneficiary are not necessary with regards to the relocation site. The law requires that the government must consult with the squatters or the beneficiaries on their eviction and relocation, but consultation does not mean consent. It is still the government that finally decide where the relocation sites shall be, but the government must exhaust all the alternatives to relocate the beneficiaries near their job sites before moving them out. So that's all for me. Thank you so much for listening.
Created using Powtoon.